When we're young, we have an amazing, positive outlook about how great life is going to be, but somewhere along the line, we forget to dream and end up settling. Join Up Dots features amazing people who refuse to give up and chose to go after their dreams. This is your blueprint for greatness. So here's your host, live from the back of his garden in the UK, David Ralph.
Yes, hello there, good morning to you all, and welcome to another edition of Join Up Dots. Yep, the motivational, conversational, and a little bit inspirational show where we take the movers and shakers across the globe and we join up the dots. We see the steps that they have taken, some knowingly, some unwittingly, stumbles and falls, failures and successes to get to where they are today. And today's guest on the show is the co-founder and CEO of Hireology. His mission to help business owners make better hiring decisions using predictive data and innovative technology. Now, what this means as far as I can see, and I'm sure that our guest will tell me if I'm right or wrong on the show, is instead of sitting down with someone and using the gut feeling of, I like this person, I could see them doing a good job in this company, you attract the right people by using cutting-edge technology, sending job positions through to mobile phones, attracting potential employees to your own bespoke company job board. Wannabe employees do a series of tailored tests before even stepping foot in your business. You have the ability to take much of the manpower away from finding the good guys, and with old-style hiring processes sitting at a miserable 50% success rate in finding the type of employees any company really wants, you can see his mission to change things is needed across the world. Now, personally, you can see that today's guest has always been driven to change things for the better. He's nothing but driven and, of course, very, very busy, it seems. After living in suburban Atlanta for 10 years, his family moved to the suburbs of Chicago in 1990, where he graduated from Lake South High School in 1994. He then received his Bachelor of Arts degree with a double major in history and communication from the University of Illinois before earning a master's degree in business administration from DePaul University, where he serves on the board of advisors for the Coleman Entrepreneurship Center. Now, in 2010, he even placed himself as a Republican nominee and challenged for the Illinois Senate, representing the 7th District in the Chicago area. So where did he ignite his passion for changing the futures of people through either job recruitment or in the wider political sense? And did he struggle like most entrepreneurs to get the ball rolling, or was the need he was aiming to fill simply crying out for his skills? Well, let's find out as we bring onto the show to start joining up dots with the one and only Mr. Adam Robinson. Good morning, Adam. How are you, sir?
Doing great. Thanks for having me on. Glad to be here, David.
It is great to have you on. You are one of those kind of people you think, where the hell do we go with this conversation? There's a few things on your plate, isn't there?
Yeah, a few things going on right now, but we're having fun.
Are you somebody that looks for fun in business, or do you look for the ka-ching? Is it money that drives you? Is it status, or is it fun?
It's absolutely fun and sense of accomplishment. It's, you know, if there's a problem to be solved, the reward is solving it. The money comes from that. I mean, business is just turning customer pain into cash flow at the end of the day, but that's not why I'm doing it. It's fun to solve the problem, and the money comes, and that's not why I'm doing this.
And it's as simple as that, is it? For all the listeners out there, if they can find a problem that needs to be solved, they don't have to worry about the technicalities as such. They just have to solve that problem, and the money will come.
That's correct. I think this is maybe getting a little wonky on the business side, but all a business model is the transfer of a customer pain into cash flow, and your business model dictates how fast that happens and whether or not it's enough to grow a sustainable business. And the fun is figuring out the model, but the goal is not making as much money as you can, at least not for me. The goal is making the machine work. That's what's fun.
But can you say that now, Adam, because you're not sort of sitting in a cardboard box? You know, you've got a house, you've got a family, everything's sort of all right in your life. If you were sort of scrabbling around for the pennies, maybe you would be going, no, money is all important. Money is where it's at. That's what I'm aiming for.
Well, but I've been there. You know, it's the same attitude. It makes it easier. I think money makes things easier. It gives you more options, but it doesn't make you happier. It doesn't make me. I'm no happier or less happy than I was when I was scraping two nickels together. There's no difference.
So
for me.
Tell us about those times when you were scraping two nickels together. Was it because you hadn't got going, you hadn't focused? Why were you sort of on different times?
Well, in my personal experience, I mean, starting a business is first the process of deciding that you're willing to invest absolutely everything that you have to make this idea work. And I remember the moment of saying, okay, this is it. I'm going to leave this perfectly stable, well-paying job. I'm going to sell everything that I have. I'm going to sell the condo. I'm going to liquidate everything that has any value. I'm going to pile it all, put it in the bank. And I figure I got about 9 months to make this thing work. Or I can always go get another job. And it was fun. That was the fun part. I've never been somebody that likes to spend money frivolously or display success in finances or anything like that. So for me, it was just about, do I have the resources to actually execute this idea? And that was incredibly exciting for me. And I think that mentality has stayed. We just have more resources to work with, so we can do more things. We can solve bigger problems. We can do it more efficiently. We can do it on a larger scale, but it's still fun.
And how old were you when you was doing this? Because there's going to be a lot of people out there going, I bet he wouldn't do it now he's a family man. I bet he wouldn't do it because he had kids. When you were sort of like selling everything and putting it all into the investment, how old were you?
Well, so when I started, I was 26. That was my last business, which actually ended in a fairly spectacular failure. So that the end of that story is it didn't work. And then, so in 2010, I'm married. We have our first son. Things have stabilized again, and I decided to do it all over again and take another shot at it.
Why? When it exploded in front of you and all your hopes and dreams went up, had you learned enough in the process to see what you'd done wrong, or were you just flippant that you could drive through any obstacle that come your way?
Well, I think it was both. I just think this is what I was born to do. It's what my passion and skill set is. I enjoy it. I like building things, and I'm not going to do anything else. And so it was one more thing to just say, okay, that didn't work. I've learned a lot. I have ideas about other problems that need to be solved. Let's get at it. Let's pick the best one and go, and do it again, and do it again and do it again.
And what was the business and why did it fail? Because it seems to me now that more businesses are right, but the knowledge base of the person isn't right at the time. 10 years later, they can almost look back and go, I tell you what, I could get that going now. I could see what I did wrong. So what was the business?
Well, that's exactly right. Well, the business was outsourced recruitment services. So companies would hire our company to be their internal recruiting department. And we were fortunate early on to land one of the fastest growing companies in the United States at the time as one of our customers. And I learned a valuable lesson in customer concentration. They were something like 70% of our revenue. And the business was doing great. We had bootstrapped it. We had grown to about 40 employees. Things were going well. We were profitable. Life was great. And then the global recession hit in 2008. And I tell you what, there were a lot of businesses that weren't fun to be in. Being in the recruiting business in 2009 was just maybe the last place in the world you wanted to be in business. Yeah. And we lost something like 75% of our revenue in 90 days. And so I'm sitting there with 40 employees a month from Christmas, just having lost 75% of our revenue. And of course, all of the financing we had with the bank was tied to receivables, which all started to age because every business was doing poorly. So everyone started stretching payments out. So the line of credit went upside down. And this cascade of crap started happening where it's like, well, now I've got to lay off 80% of my staff, which means I have to fire a bunch of unprofitable customers because I can't service them, which means it's even harder to pay the bank, which makes the bank even more aggressive about collecting. And it was just this vicious downward cycle. And it probably took me 2 years to triage that situation and get it stable. But I learned a lot. And I look back now, the second business that I started here, Hireology, I just remember thinking, okay, well, I'm going to start this business. I'm not going to have receivables, never doing that again. Everyone's paying with credit cards. I'm going to make people pay in advance. I'm going to have thousands of small customers, not a handful of large ones, because I never want someone to kick the leg of the chair out from under me and have the thing fall over again. And so this second time around, it was all the things that happened that was a punch in the face. You just figure, okay, well, let's not do that again. That model didn't work. And you learn from it. And I've made those mistakes, similar mistakes, different mistakes. And then the next time I do it, I'll learn from those. But it's a process.
Now, as you was talking, I had an image of you on a bar somewhere in Chicago late at night, lined up in front of you, empty glasses, flicking peanut shells at the barman at the far end, and feeling despondent and depressed and why me? You must have gone through that phase. How did you pull yourself out? Did you have a support group around you? Are you somebody that just sees the bright side of life?
I think, well, so yes, I had those moments, but for me, I forced myself to snap out of it because no one's going to solve my problem but me. So I can't sit there and wallow in it. They dig a deeper hole. So snap right out of it. I had an incredibly supportive family. I mean, I had a 12-month-old son. I couldn't mess around. I couldn't feel sorry for myself. It was the realization that no one's going to solve this problem but me. I have to do it. People are counting on me. Get your shit together and get out there and make something happen. But
that's quite, I'm going to jump in there, Adam. That's really strong-willed, isn't it? Because most people will go, help me, and play the victim card. But you didn't do that at all.
Well, so it was entirely my fault. I was a victim of my own poor decision-making and planning. And, acknowledging that is really the first thing. It's like, okay, well, I kind of screwed that up. Now what? Now what are we going to do about it? Explain to the people that are close to me that this is what's happening. Explain that that I've got a plan to get out of this. Ask for their support and just keep moving. So my wife, my family, fully supportive and really didn't ever lose faith in the fact that success is possible. And it was just, okay, let's keep moving. I mean, I just didn't stay in that spot for very long. I think there were some moments, but less than 3 or 4 days of that. And then I was off to the next thing.
I went up to work one day, the investment bank in London that I was working, and I hated it. I really hated it every second of every day, but it was paying very, very good money. And I walked in one lunchtime and I only had to do the afternoon, and within 20 minutes I was redundant. They'd replaced me and there was no clue coming up to it. And as I walked home, I thought, oh my God, what's my life going to be like? Oh my God, what can I do? I've got all these bills to pay. And I got up the next morning, and I think it's the only time ever I put a dressing gown on. And I put a dressing gown on, I had my slippers on, I didn't shave, and I sat on the sofa, and I must have been there for about 90 minutes until my wife said, right, that's enough. Right, pull yourself together, get out there and, get yourself together, and away you go. So did you have a kicker? Did you have a kicker who could boot you around a place, but you knew they were right when they were booting you?
I had a colleague of mine, a guy named Al Wasserberger, actually, who lives in New York, who was a very successful entrepreneur. And I explained to him that, what had happened in the business and that I was trying to fix it. And he looked at me and he goes, why don't you just quit? And I said, well, what are you talking about? And he said, well, listen, all you have is your time and your energy, and you never get more time back. So have you asked the question, is what I'm doing worth saving? And I said, well, no. What do you mean? He said, well, have you ever thought that you could work as hard as you can and this business just is never going to be that successful because it's just not a model that's ever going to work? And I said, God, I haven't really thought about that. So what do I do? And he said, I want you to draw a line in the sand. I want you to look out 6 months. You draw a line in the sand and you say, if I don't do X, Y, and Z 6 months from now, right? Revenue number, profitability number, customer acquisition number, name the metrics, but you draw a line in the sand and you bust your ass to make that happen. And if you don't get there, I want you to promise me you're going to quit and do something else. And I drew the line. I busted my ass. By God, I did not get there. He was right. The business just wasn't ever going to be successful because the model didn't work. And so I quit, right? I sold the book of business to another company. I sat there for a year on a contract going to work for someone else again to just get my feet back out from under me. And 366 days later, when that contract was up, I walked out the door and started my next company. And if Al had not taken the time to put his foot in my rear end and force me to look at it the way he did, I might still be toiling away, breaking rocks in a business that was just never going to be profitable. And I'm very, very grateful to him for that.
We do all need an Al, don't we? We all need somebody to just honestly boot us around, because it's nice surrounding yourself with virtual friends that go, oh, you're great, Adam. Oh, you're wonderful. Oh, it's going to come out all right. But that's not what you need in times like that, is it? Realism wins every day.
Realism wins. Objectivity wins. You've got to step outside the situation, because what I found was so emotionally attached to the business and just really refusing to quit, because that's not something I like to do. And when somebody looks at it and says, look, man, you just got to walk away from this, do something else with your time that's going to yield to a much better result. That was an experience. It really changed my perspective.
So looking at you as a wider sense, you are somebody that you like change. You can see that. You drive change. You instill change. Was that always with you, even as a small kid? Were you somebody that, liked the changing of the season? You liked the changing of school lessons? Where did that come from?
Well, so when I was I was probably 13 years old, our family moved from the southeastern United States in Atlanta up to Chicago. And the change was so big and so abrupt culturally that I think it just forced me to get to know myself very quickly and adapt very quickly. And I liked it. I mean, I loved the experience. It really made a difference for me. And I've shared that with my family. I mean, I was pretty stable and happy, and going through life, and everything was great. And then you move everything, and everything changes, and you have to adapt. That experience was really the first time I looked at this and said, okay, I can either bemoan the circumstance that I've just lost all my friends and I'm starting at a new high school and things are weird, or I can embrace it and get to know people and make the most of this and see the opportunity in this change. And, that's, I think, the first experience I had where that really was the opportunity.
It's closure, isn't it, of your old life? You can reinvent yourself. I think it's a lot easier. I used to be a corporate manager, and one of the things when people would transfer to a different department, quite often they wanted to sit at the same desk. And I used to say to them, no, you go to a different desk. People have got to see you differently. You've got to close that life and move on to the next one. I was very big on that. And a lot of times people try to sort of hang on to what they've got. There is a clearing of life, friends, situations that's needed to be done sometime, isn't it? But people do cling to what they've got already.
They do, because I think, the trap I can fall into is that I like certainty. I mean, that's just, I'm wired, ironically, maybe paradoxically, to like certainty. And if I don't have that certainty, I create that certainty. Sometimes I create that certainty by changing the situation, right, to some situation that I know is that I can control, or that's more certain. That can have positive outcomes. That could have negative outcomes. But the change I'm not afraid of. It's really more about, it's a control issue more than a change issue. If I feel like I've got a handle on it, I'm in good shape. If I don't, then I'm going to change the circumstance.
Let's play some words that sort of summarize that quite nicely. Here's Oprah.
The way through the challenge is to get still and ask yourself, what is the next right move? Not think about, I got all of this stuff. What is the next right move? And then from that space, make the next right move and the next right move. And not to be overwhelmed by it, because your life is bigger than that one moment. You're not defined by what somebody says is a failure for you, because failure is just there to point you in a different direction.
Pretty good words, Adam, aren't they?
It's exact. I mean, that so nicely describes how I think about the decision making and opportunities. That it's no single decision is the sum total of your life. It's one decision at a time, and you want to make the best decision with the information you have. It's like we just heard, make that next right move, and if it's wrong, correct it, make a better move, right, and then make a better one. It's absolutely applies.
In the world generally, people like decisions to be made for them. I was just having an interview with a couple who have created an online profile, which is amazing. And they used to be teachers, and then they realised that they'd given the power away to other people, and their life was somebody else's. So they took it back, created their own online platform, and away they go. They're making every single decision, but it all started from that one decision of, hang on, who's going to be in charge of our own lives? A lot of people don't like that though, Adam. So what makes you different from maybe half the audience who are listening in at the moment, who will listen to podcast after podcast after podcast, but still go through the same routines day in, day out?
Well, I like to I talk a lot about this in my business every day with our customers, and it's this notion of this locus of control, which is a psychology term. It basically describes the degree to which you believe that the things that happen in your life, good or bad, are due to actions and decisions that you make, good or bad. You can have an internal locus of control or an external locus of control. And someone with an internal locus of control says things in their head like, wow, I could have done a much better job executing that decision. I'll do better next time. I've learned from that mistake. Someone with an external locus of control would say, they didn't give me the opportunity to be my best, right? And so when you have an external locus of control, you give your power away to other people or circumstances. And there is no way that I'm going to go through my life giving away my power and control to third parties that have no vested interest or stake in my outcome. Not going to happen. So I'm going to have an internal locus of control. I'm going to own my result. And when I started embracing that as a mindset is really where I started to see more success, because mistakes are completely overcomable if you own your mistake and decide to do the next thing a little bit better.
So you are now the co-founder and CEO of Hireology, which is rocking and rolling. It's doing great stuff. And was my explanation in the intro, was that about right? Is this how it operates?
It is, yeah. Hireology is a software platform that helps owner-operated businesses, primarily in the franchise industry and dealer networks, like car dealerships, be great at the people side of their business. We give managers everything they need to build a great team, and we're in business because most managers just aren't very good at that. And so we provide the tool set to help them be good at that. And
how did this idea come to you? Was it part of learning from experience, seeing, because it seems similar to like the first thing that you was doing?
Well, so the first thing I did, that was a service business. And the issue in that company and why the model didn't work is because our customers absolutely sucked at interviewing and hiring people. So they would hire us to generate these pools of candidates that we'd submit to them, and the managers of these companies would have no idea how to do the interview or pick people. And I would inevitably get the phone call that said, hey, Adam, this program isn't working. And I would say, well, wait a second. We are giving you great applicants. Your managers aren't following a process. So I built a system. It was just a paper-based system, a series of interview guides and scorecards I gave to our customers to help them manage the output that they were buying from us. And our customers started calling me saying, this system's great. Can I buy this from you? And I said, absolutely not. It's what makes us unique, but thanks for being a customer. Well, then when the recession hit, the whole value proposition inverted. And we went from an economy here in the United States where businesses were struggling to find one good person to 10, 12% unemployment, where businesses had 500 applicants for every one job. And so now the problem became processing. And so I decided, well, okay, I'm going to get out of this service business and I'm going to be in a product business that helps automate and streamline this. And I'm going to use the system that everybody tried to buy from me in my last company. And that's where Hireology came from. So the failure of that business model was our customers didn't have the skill set to really be successful with the business that they were getting from us. And I took that to create a system that helped them be successful. And so from that failure came Hireology, and that's led to success.
So you basically saw something that was going wrong in the marketplace, always going wrong, and solved it in something that is time efficient, it's easy to use, and people can really sort of tap into it, and it takes the personality away from hiring. Would that be right?
It's correct, yes, and there really is true. It sounds cliche. It's not. It's absolutely the most important concept in business. The only way you're going to be successful if you save people time or save people money. That's it. And I found that this actually did both things. And when you do both of those things, when you're 2 for 2, you've got a successful business model if you work at it.
Because we were talking recently on a show about that mindset that suddenly switches on, as you say, for convenience. Saves people time, saves people money. People can create a business by going over to YouTube or Google, and all the information is there if you want it, but people are still willing to pay if it comes together in a package. And that is a big mindset that people have to get over when they're creating something. That I feel that they almost feel that they've got to create the new something or other, but they don't. They just have to almost package what's already out there, and there's enough customers to go round. Would you see the same?
I absolutely do. We didn't invent human capital software or recruiting software. I mean, this is a category that's been around for 30 years, but there is a whole category of customer that the existing solutions did not save them time or money. They were prohibitively expensive and cost them time. It was hard to use. And so our approach was, well, look, let's build this in a way that actually provides daily utility value for this kind of customer, and just focus on saving them time and saving them money through the process. And that's led to success. It's not been easy, but the concept is simple.
And so, well, what was the hard bit about getting it through? Because on this show, it almost seems like come up with an idea, got a bit of investment, threw it out to the world, and bang. But a product is only a product without marketing. So did you have word of mouth? Did you walk along the street handing out leaflets? How did you actually get it out to the market?
Well, you really nailed it. I mean, the best product and ideas doesn't mean anything if you don't have distribution. So this was my approach. I would phone up HR leaders in growing mid-sized companies, primarily technology companies. And I would say, hi, my name's Adam Robinson. I'm the CEO of Hireology. We're working on an innovative product in the market, and I am calling thought leaders in HR like yourself to get your feedback. Can you spend 10 minutes with me and let me know what you think of my idea? And I got something like a 60% positive response rate. And I would share the idea, and people would inevitably ask probably half the time. So now we're at about a 25% conversion rate. Is this for sale yet? This is pretty interesting. And I just repeated that process for 6 months. And at the end of 6 months, we had 25 paying customers. And that was enough to go out to the venture capital community, raise some money, and go. And that was the beginning of it. But people, at the end of the day, they want to help. They also want to leverage their experience and feel valued. And when you can call them and ask them for their help and to leverage their experience, they're more than happy to help you. And they just also happen to be our target customers. So I got great feedback from very generous people that wanted to help, and many of them bought it.
I don't do any coaching now without actually talking to the person beforehand. When I first started Join Up Dots, I created products that I kind of hoped that they would just magically go out to the world. I'd make money while I slept. And I realized after probably about 1.5 to 2 years, it is far more successful by actually having a 15 to 20 minute Skype call one-on-one that the person can test you out and you can test them out before they ever buy into their product. So I don't have any online products now that I'm not involved in personally, and it's become so much more successful. That's what you've done. You've done that really well, that the people actually get a flavor of what you're about, and they're not just hiding behind a nameless product.
Well, people don't buy software. They buy an outcome. And I want people to understand, if they do business with us, we are going to deliver an outcome. The promise we make, you give us your money, we deliver an outcome. That outcome is you're going to build the best possible team you can build. You're going to do it in less time, and you're going to do it for less money. And so that's the promise. And I just don't know that I can make that promise successfully completely arm's length through digital marketing online. That's just, maybe 10 years ago, but there's just so much of that now. You've got to cut through the clutter. And I just philosophically think human relationships matter immensely. And that's what has to be present for a business to really be successful today.
I agree totally. So let's hear some words now, and then we're going to delve back into your story again. But these are the words that Steve Jobs said back in 2005, and they're hugely inspirational to me and to so many people as well. Steve Jobs.
Of course, it was impossible to connect the dots looking forward when I was in college, but it was very, very clear looking backwards 10 years later. Again, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future. You have to trust in something, your gut, destiny, life, karma, whatever. Because believing that the dots will connect down the road will give you the confidence to follow your heart, even when it leads you off the well-worn path. And that will make all the difference.
So I think what this episode has been about so far is basically decision making at every stage of the process, personally and professionally. So when you hear those words, Adam, do they inspire you to be creative? Do you think, yeah, they're exactly as my life is being led? How do they make you feel?
They really resonate with me, David. And as I look back, I can see those dots. For me, I start with a vision of what I want to accomplish 20, 30 years from now. I can see that. I can see what life looks like. I've actually written it down. It's in a notebook I keep. I know what that life looks like for me. And as I look back, and then I know the dots, as Steve Jobs just described it, they're going to connect. I just don't know what the dots are going to be. But I look back, and a few of those for me, I mean, it was the move from Atlanta to Chicago. It was the decision in college that I wanted to be a high school history teacher. It was the reality that there were no jobs available when I graduated. So the decision to take a job at an IT staffing company as a placeholder, the realization that I liked that business and that I wanted to work for a tech startup, working for that tech startup that sold technology to dealer networks and franchise systems where I learned that business. The realization that I could be in business for myself, start the recruiting business, fail at that, but learn the real problem set, then launch a product into the customers that I learned in my first job with the lessons learned from the failed business. I mean, all of those things line up. I can see it so clearly. And I can see that they line up on the right trajectory to get me where I want to go. And all I need to do is have the confidence in myself to know when it's time to make that change and make the decision. And if there's anything I've done, it's been that. It's just be decisive. And being decisive took me time to get there, but it's the most important skill set that I've developed.
So being decisive, being in control of your future is totally understandable. So why did you then throw yourself into the political arena, which is anything but stable? You're literally having to convince people to like you, vote for you, get you into power. Well, what was that all about?
Well, I mean, and it's such a charged environment now. It's just it's really quite frustrating that we can't have conversations that are rational anymore. But I was tired of being passive. I saw primarily opportunities to improve the economic situation for people in the city of Chicago through entrepreneurship, and I thought the policies were just stifling ideas and innovation and actually reducing the rate at which businesses were created. And I didn't want to just shout at the television. I wanted to do something. So I said, well, I'm going to run for this. I'm probably going to lose, but I don't care. It's going to give me a platform, and I'm going to get a message out there, and in some small way I can move the needle. And so I figured out how to do it, and I just did it. And that led to so many amazing relationships and connection to the community and relationships in political circles. And I just learned so much about it. And I learned enough to know that now's not that time for me. Right. Being in politics is basically the process of lighting your net worth on fire and spending all your free time with strangers. And that's not interesting to me right now. This is not the stage of life I'm at. So I know enough. I can make a difference in other ways. And when I've made my money and can be fully in control of how I spend my time, I can get back into what I'm really passionate about. And that's, making the world better for the people that I share it with. And there will be a time where I'm doing that again.
But there's a Scottish comedian called Billy Connolly, and he always says that anybody that shows any indication of going into politics are the exact people that you should stop going into politics. And I understand that totally, because there's so much ego involved, isn't there? There's so much the real honest approach of people that want to make a difference is kind of, it works better at ground roots level. Once you get up into the halls of power, what you wanted to do at the beginning just gets bogged down in red tape somehow.
That's correct. And so in business, the exchange of value is save time and money. In politics, the exchange of value is the transfer of power and the accumulation of power. And the accumulation of power is not helpful to your constituents unless you use that power to improve their lives. And unfortunately, the observation I've made, and this is in the US and in most political situations around the world, is that power is used to accumulate even more power to the person. And that's the problem with it. And maybe that's a cynical view of it, but it's just that for me is not where I want to be spending my time right now. And I want to create value. I don't want to accumulate power. That's not what I'm interested in. But if you don't have the power, you can't impact the change. And so you have to play that game if you're going to be successful in politics. I'm not interested in playing that game.
So looking back at those words for Steve Jobs, what would be the big dot in your life when everything comes together? We asked the same question to literally every person who comes on the show, but what would be your big dot when you look back on your life? You think, yeah, that probably was when everything started leading towards where I am now.
It was the birth of our first son, and the realization that, okay, I need to be much more intentional about the decisions I make. I can't just move from thing to thing. I really have to dig in and apply myself to the one best idea at a time. And I can be wrong, but being wrong has implications. So I better tighten my game up. I really just need to be better. And for me, that was the moment. And I can remember it vividly, where I just thought, this has got to work. I got people counting on me.
And does that sort of build undue pressure on you, or does it actually make it easier when you've got those responsibilities and you're not the lone wolf just going for it on your own?
For some, it might not. For me, it did. I think for me, forcing constraints produces focus and result. So I can spray my energy all over the place and do lots of different things and have fun. Or I can do one thing really well and have fun. And I've learned that doing the one thing really, really well produces a much better result on the trajectory that I want to achieve than just pursuing every interest simultaneously and having fun with it, but never actually getting anywhere. And the family is the constraint that forced me to focus. And it was inspiring. It was absolutely inspiring and motivating.
And so what is your one thing then, Adam, the thing that you do better than anything else and really drives your 80-20? You get the majority of your results from doing it.
I think I understand the problem in the market, and I think I know how to marshal the resources and put the right people in place to go solve that problem. And I've learned that I don't have to do everything. Actually, the less I do, the more successful we are. And so I just... if I can give away the opportunity to others to pursue it, together we're all successful. And I think I'm good at that problem identification, resource marshaling, right person, right seat, business model creation. I love it. It's fun for me, and I've found that I'm pretty good at it.
I worked for a guy many, many years ago, and he was never in the office. He was never in the office. He was just on the golf course all the time. And I once bumped into him, and I said to him, you've got a good life. You're never here. And he said, I'm not here because I know the right thing to do. And I said, what's the right thing? And he said, not be here. And he basically based his whole office on getting the right people in to complement his weaknesses, basically. And he just swanned around. But when he did come in, he would come into the boardroom, he would sit there, and what he came out with was absolute gold. It was like he'd had 6 weeks of thinking time where in an office environment you're getting bombarded, and he actually was more successful because of the fact that he was on the golf course allowing his brain to compute what needed to be done. Fascinating, really.
It is. It's interesting. I mean, this is the very famous book, The Founder's Dilemma. It's a classic. And the question these researchers asked is, as the entrepreneur, do you want to be rich or do you want to be king? Because you cannot be both. And it turns out the value of your asset that you're building, the business asset, is directly related to the degree to which you give away responsibility in management of that business. So if you want to be in control of everything, you can do that, but you're going to have a small company with a worse outcome. If you want to build an asset that's worth the most possible amount of money, right? Build the most valuable asset, you've got to just start giving it away. And you'll have a smaller piece of a much bigger opportunity. And that lesson has just proven so true for me over the years.
Right, okay. Well, just before we send you back in time on the Sermon on the Mic to have a one-on-one with your younger self, joining up the dots of your life, what's going forward? If you could take those dots that we've been looking back on and move them forward, what is the plan in Adam's life?
For me, Hireology is my sole focus, and I see such opportunity for this business over the next 20 years to be a really large, very successful business with scale that delivers real value to tens of thousands of business owners in the U.S. and around the world that help them be successful by building the right team. I believe it. I can see it. I'm heads down, making this the most it can possibly be. And that for me is the absolute best use of my time, because if we're successful here and have a great result, it unlocks all kinds of option and opportunity for me for what's next in my life. If I fail here, great, I'll learn, I'll get up and I'll do it again. But what I'm doing now is what I need to be doing, and I'll stay focused on this until we deliver the result that we've promised to investors and to the market.
Perfect stuff. Perfect stuff and the perfect answer. Well, this is the part of the show that we've been leading up to that we call the Sermon on the Mic, when we send you back in time to have a one-on-one with your younger self. And if you could go back in time and speak to the young Adam, what age would you choose and what advice would you give? Well, we're going to find out, because I'm going to play the music, and when it fades, you're up. This is the Sermon on the Mic.
Here we go with the best bit of the show, the Sermon on the Mic, the Sermon on the Mic.
Yeah, I think I'm talking to myself at about 10 or 11 years old, and I'm understanding that the things that I do, the decisions that I make, I should do it with less fear and apprehension. Don't second guess yourself. If you think that something's a good idea and you feel like in your heart and your gut that it's the right decision to make, do not worry about what other people might think. Do not worry about what might go wrong. Just follow that pursuit to your best ability, because it might work, it might not, but it will absolutely not be what you want if you never take the action. So just start sooner, do it with less fear, embrace these opportunities, go forward. Don't wait so long to start to pursue what you really want.
Perfect. So Adam, what's the number one best way that our audience who've been listening to us today can connect with you?
So you can go to my website at www.thebestteamwins.com or check out our product at www.hireology.com, and my contact information is freely available there. You can find me on Twitter at ADRobbins or on Instagram at Mr. Robinson's Neighborhood.
We will have all the links on the show notes to make it as easy as possible. Adam, thank you so much for spending time with us today, joining up those dots. And please come back again when you have more dots to join up, because I do believe that by joining up the dots and connecting our past is the best way to build our futures. Adam Robinson, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
And there you have it. So if any show kind of defines join up dots, message that you make decisions, you move forward. Some are right, some are wrong, but you look back on them and you can see the ones that really work for you and you can connect the dots, you can join up the dots. That was the episode. I think that was a real sort of blueprint for what it's all about. Adam's doing the thing that he likes. He can see his value, so he's doing more of it, and he will get more and more successful. Once you find your thing and you just keep on doing that thing, then people do notice and it becomes easier and easier. After all I do is talk into a microphone. But until next time, we'll see you again. Cheers. See ya. Bye-bye.
David doesn't want you to become a faded version of the brilliant self you were once to become. So he's put together an amazing guide for you called the 8 Pieces of Advice that every successful entrepreneur practices, including the 2 that changed his life. Head over to joinupdots.com to download this amazing guide for free, and we'll see you tomorrow on Join Up Dots.